Well, what's behind us, Grams?
This is the Queen Mary, the original.
And
And we're going on a haunted tour, apparently.
where are we?
We're in Long Beach, California.
Welcome aboard the who came in to set up for one such event. I came across a lady in a lovely evening gown that they simply described as old-fashioned, sitting in a wicker chair in the middle of the dance floor. She wasn't hurting anything, they just went about their business. But a few moments later, their boss, the head housekeeper, walked in and asked about the lady in the evening gown. They told her, "We don't know what she wants." The head housekeeper went to find out. She addressed the woman several times, but she didn't speak or move at all, so finally, the housekeeper threatened to call security. While she was on the phone, the lady in the evening gown stood up, looked around the room, even smiled, and then both the lady and the wicker chair disappeared. All three women claimed to have seen the same thing. This apparition lasted for almost 10 minutes, which is the longest we have on record. Thousands of passengers, but some were more prolific than others. One of the most prolific passengers to sail on the Queen Mary was Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II. Whenever he was on board, he had his own private suite. All the rooms around that became his war offices. Now he designated Churchill Suite. M119 on the starboard side is believed to be the room he stayed in. It's also the most requested hotel room on board. A lot of the guests who stayed in there tell us at random times they will smell cigar smoke. If you don't know anything about Winston Churchill, he was notorious for being a very heavy drinker and smoker. So parapsychologists believe the smell of cigar smoke is Churchill's essence, lingering in the room even half a century after he occupied it. That led to a story of a housekeeper following the smell of cigar smoke right up to the door of the Churchill suite. She knocked several times, no answer. Finally just keyed herself in. She said she came across a portly gentleman sitting in a chair smoking a cigar. When she informed him, "Sir, there is no smoking allowed on the ship," he dissolved into a portrait above the chair, which just so happens to be of Winston Churchill. I told that story about a decade ago. I had a very nice Englishman walk up to me and say, "I don't believe that for a second." His issue with the story was that if it had really been the ghost of Sir Winston, before dissolving, he would have said something snarky or sexist. Just going to continue down one deck, gather around the piano, and it'll be with you in just a moment. They could hear a soft melody coming from this original piano. They were not the first or last people to make that claim. A lot of our hotel guests on a late night expedition trying to find an ice machine have wandered by and told us they have seen the bench shift on its own, and then they will also hear a soft melody. We don't know who the ghost pianist is, but the music is thought to accompany a ghost that we call the Lady in White. Some believe she was a war bride. Right after World War II ended, the Queen Mary's new job was to bring all of the American GIs, sweethearts, from the United Kingdom to the United States. The catch was, the only way that these ladies got off the ship and stayed in the States was if their soldier came to claim them. It's believed the Lady in White was a war bride who was never claimed. No one I've ever talked about it seems to think that she died on board. So parapsychologists believe that the devastation of being left behind trapped her spirit here. Whatever the reason, wherever this piano goes, and it's had a few different homes on the ship, people will tell us they see the Lady in White in a wedding dress dancing alone as if she's waiting for a new partner. Folks, you want to take some photos of the piano or check out the Starbucks Lounge, go right ahead. I just ask that you do not sit at the bench or play the piano, as they are both almost 90 years old and a little fragile. I saw a man in a 1930s style suit sitting at the desk going over some papers. The two of them caught eyes. The man in the suit disappeared. So the pilot's natural reaction was to pull the covers over his head and go to sleep. He got the next morning to investigate what the crash had been in the bathroom. He found that the ghost had dumped the contents of his toiletry bag into the sink and discarded the bag into the tub. Onward and upward. Though they were the only people in the It would close in 6 to 12 seconds. Working in the machine areas could get monotonous. If it was smooth sailing, meaning no real issues to tend to, they pretty much just stood around waiting for their shift to end. During fire drills, they invented a game called chicken. While the hatches were closing, they would jump back and forth through the hatchway to see how many times they could make it through before it slammed shut. 1966, on a very foggy day in July, just as a precaution, the captain ordered all the hatches closed. Up at the bridge, we watched all of the little indicator lights come on, except for one. Some engineers made their way down into the aft engine room to discover an 18-year-old fireman crushed in hatch 13. They got him out, they took him to the infirmary. He was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. In Niagara reports, people will see a young man in coveralls who simply fades from view. I've heard reports of disembodied whistling, and women will complain they felt somebody pull their hair. There's a theory why the engineer will specifically target women. In the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, probably even the 70s, women were not allowed in machine areas on a ship. You did not go into the engine room, you definitely didn't go in the boiler rooms, so the engineer was pulling your hair to say, hey, you don't belong here. Nobody knows for sure how he got caught in the hatch, because he was down there by himself. There are those who insist he was playing chicken. But there are others who think he was just coming back for a tool that he had dropped, and he misjudged the timing. Because he also reports of people hearing him whisper, have you seen my wrench? Folks, you want to take some photos of the hatch, or pose for the hatch, go right ahead, and step inside. Is believed watched any of the ghost hunter type shows that featured the Queen Mary, you may have already heard about room B340, which is supposed to be the most haunted room on the ship. It's located at the front of B deck. It is not marked in any way. As soon as the ghost shows made B340 famous, people started breaking into it and stealing things. Their favorite thing to steal was the nameplates that said B340, so we stopped replacing them. The first ghost story about that room came from the 1960s. The passenger woke up and claimed she felt someone repeatedly pulling the sheets off of her. At first, she thought the sheets had just fallen off, so she pulled them back up. They got pulled back down. She pulled them back up, they got pulled back down. A full-on tug-of-war ensued. Before she remembered, she was in the room by herself. She looked up, she saw the silhouette of a man standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed, the man disappeared. Her scream got the full attention of the night steward, who ran up the hall into her room. Once she calmed down enough to explain what had happened, the steward explained that when he passed her room, he didn't see anybody go in, and he didn't pass anybody in the hall on his way back. Jump forward to the 1980s. The whole space was a standard hotel room. A housekeeper went in to change the linens. She stepped out to get some towels for the bathroom. When she went back in, she found the sheets on the bed that she had just made in a pile in the middle of the floor. Now, all the activity in B340 is attributed to a death reported in 1950. Everyone had already disembarked. The staff captain was making his rounds. He discovered the passenger had passed away in his bed. Cause of death? Unknown. Whoever this gentleman was, we just call him Walter. He's the ghost that's believed to haunt B340. The room was discontinued for renting because of the constant complaints from hotel guests. They would wake up to see the lights in the bathroom turning on and off by themselves. Guests would leave the room, come back, all the water fixtures would be running, or they'd hear a knock at the door, open it, and of course, there's nobody there. So finally the hotel said, enough, and they shut it down. There's talk for years afterwards of restoring B340 and renting it out as the Haunted Room. So in 2018, it became a mini suite that went for about $1,000 a night. Our first non-promotional guests kept calling the front desk to say, okay, we get it, we turn off the special effects now. The attendant had to keep telling these people, there are no special effects, we just remodeled the room. They left abruptly at 2 o'clock in the morning, so I'm guessing they had a good time. All right, folks, you're gonna head down 2 decks. Basically,